Hey, Sketch Art, I'm Mark Warner here for Jancast number 154, September 21st, 2023. It's September. Yep, it's not long now. We'll be raking the leaves, right, Mark?
I
Something to look
know.
forward to. Yeah.
I know. As soon as you think, well, maybe I don't have to mow the grass as often, all of a sudden you get a new variable,
That's
raking the
right.
leaves. But
Don't forget to order your winter rinse and liquid ice melt. Blatant product plug there, even though we're not supposed to do that. But it is coming. You never know, right?
it is
So
amazing how fast the year is gone.
yeah,
It's
that's for
crazy.
sure. So what's in the news, Mark? I think there's a little bit out there, right?
Well, the most fascinating part that's in the news revolves around, the technology sector.
Hmm.
And the big news is all about the hacking that's in the news, which
Yeah.
is kind of amazing. I know there was a story about MGM and Caesars getting hacked.
Yep.
And, part of it, like part of the description of that hack of MGM, Scott, it's that their slot machines went
Yeah.
dark, the
Yeah.
ATMs went out of order.
I saw the
People were
elevators
cashing
were.
out winnings that
Yeah,
maybe they didn't have. I was
the
like,
elevators weren't working, so they couldn't even get to their rooms. And then some of the rooms they couldn't open because the electric locks were all screwed up.
well, I think all that was going on because they refused to pay the ransomware
Yeah.
fee.
Yeah.
And Caesars, actually, it was reported they paid $15 million
Yeah.
in ransom on the promise that the hackers would leave it alone.
Yeah. Not release all the personal data they got.
Well, and we can trust them at their word, right? I mean, but the interesting thing is that they traced the MGM attacks. Well, they didn't actually trace it. This outfit called Alpha, out of Russia, actually made claim that they're the ones that did it. They claimed responsibility for it. They go by the name of Black Cat. And I thought that was kind of interesting that they claimed responsibility for that one. I
Yeah.
guess there's this whole hierarchy of, among hackers. I don't know.
Well, I've
But
heard it's like a full-time business in Russia. I was listening to a podcast yesterday. We were talking about the fact that these hackers have HR departments and they have SOPs on how to do stuff, and it's a real. I mean, if you think about 30 million here, 10 million there. I mean, it's a pretty substantial business, right?
hackers have an HR department. Now
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Um,
And we're talking about Las Vegas. So they're right, let's roll through. So they're repaving all the streets. That's kind of screwing stuff because I think there's some race coming up at some point. And they're taking out the palm trees and stuff and charging $1,500 to sit at a restaurant on the racetrack. And now we have hackers shutting down the casinos. What could go wrong at the ISSA show? I mean, not, yeah, just saying.
yeah, talk about rolling the dice. there's there's so many variables that are being thrown at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
Well, and,
That's for
and
sure.
the other cyber attack news is kind of like it's like back in the day of beginning of COVID when we had all the supply chain disruptions, but that was because everything was stuck on container ships coming from China or wherever. But now you did most of the digging into this. I saw a couple articles on it over the weekend, but Clorox was hit, right?
Yeah, so I mean, going back to like the whole cyber attacks and all that stuff, it's been big on the news, actually all over national news. So Clorox got hit with a cyber attack, and it affected their production of products.
Yeah.
So I know they made it sound as though there were multiple products involved, but the only ones I heard them kind of call out were the Clorox wipes. Because
Yeah.
the announcer that I was listening to when I heard that on the news said, "Hey, I wonder if we can get some good money on eBay for this pack of Clorox wipes I got on my desk." No,
Well, if anybody needs, we do have wipes at Bullen here under the RX brand. They're not bleach wipes, but we do have them because we were not cyber hacked that I know of, at least. So we got a lot of compliments on our last show. We called it the M&A show. And it was kind of interesting to get some of the feedback. Everybody was really appreciative, and actually I talked to a couple people that were considering maybe selling their business, and after they heard our show, they actually went back and watched it twice, and they've decided, no, I'm going to stay with the business and not sell it, because they didn't realize the percentage of failure which is involved with the M&As. I'm sure most people don't want to think about that, but so now we've got some more info. This just came out. It's a Facility Cleaning Decisions magazine as part of CleanLink. And they have some really good data that, we can all imagine who's going to get bought next, but this is data that they talk about this is Facility Cleaning Decision Management Study. It was done 2023, and I'll post up a link for it, but some pretty interesting data that came from this, that at least, we don't know who's going to be bought out, but at least you can see the info that we're getting from the facility people as to what they've been doing and what they're going to be doing in the future.
The most fascinating part to me was where a lot of facilities were trying to get information, especially pricing information regarding products. And, that was traditionally home base for Janssen distributors. They would get that first call. I think the statistics we were reading were that at one point it was well in excess of 70%, and it's been falling a little bit.
Yeah.
So facility managers or procurement agents are not solely turning to Janssen distributors for pricing information. They tend to be getting pricing from other places that they can get on the internet.
Yeah.
So it's down from like 70% this year. The study showed it's down to 50% of the pricing inquiries were going to Janssen distributors, and the rest were going to a variety of different things: online, Amazon, Google, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And good news for a lot of the stuff that you're involved in with the training and everything out there. That's still showing that top two categories being hiring and maintaining a quality staff at 55% and increasing staff at 50%. Those people have to be trained, and there's a big jump to talk about proving 43% plan to emphasize more management training themselves, a jump from only 29% 2022. So that's good for all the stuff that you're doing, traveling around the country or via Zoom or anything else. In fact, you got one today, right?
Yeah, yes, I do. And I've kind of sensed that anyway. There has been such a rise in people wanting to document that they've received some form of formal training.
Yeah.
Because, our whole industry, if you go back 20, 30, 40 years, it was all about, well, who taught you? Well, Freddie taught me. He got taught by Joni, and then Joni got taught by, Stan, and Stan got taught by, Greg, and it's kind of like, well, it makes you think of the campfire story thing, stories about a mouse end up as stories about a moose, and things change in translation a little bit. And, right now, that's not considered good enough that somebody can talk about how they've learned through campfire stories. And it's more about, can you document that you've been trained on best practices? Can you document that you know how to do these things? And, I think the big kick on that, Scott, was COVID.
Yep.
There were a lot of people that were very leery about allowing people to come into their homes to clean their homes or into their offices or their buildings, because, they didn't know if the folks that were coming in have actually been trained on prevention of cross-contamination, surface-to-surface cross-contamination, all the science that comes into cleaning properly. And so I'm not surprised to see the statistics starting to show that people are seeking training. I kind of sensed it.
Yep. Well, that's good. And then the green cleaning is definitely dropping substantially. So the quote, the specific comment was, perhaps the most interesting shift is how green cleaning and sustainable initiatives lag behind other management priorities in 2023. Emphasizing sustainability as a top priority was reported by just 17% of the facility cleaning managers, down from 33%. That's a big difference.
Dropped in half, and there's been a lot of surveys on that too. And some of the surveys kind of point the finger at the fact that the entire industry has somewhat shifted in its attempt to make sure that products are safer, right? So the entire industry was under great scrutiny 20 years ago regarding toxicities and things, VOCs and all that. And the industry, in many ways, voluntarily shifted into making sure that they are working with products that were less toxic or were not dangerous to the environment, biodegradability and all that. So I read in a survey that there's a certain assumption that the whole industry has gotten, let's say, greener and more sustainable on a voluntary basis. Not all of them have gone through the process of getting third-party certified. And that third-party certification is still required by some government buyers. But, for a lot of facilities, I think they're getting a little bit higher level of comfort that there's an awareness of everybody trying to make things safer to work with.
Yep. Well, the final little bit is, what information do you receive from your distributors, manufacturers, retailer, big box stores, or the internet? So this one's interesting. It kind of ties in with some of the pricing questions. Is 51% go to distributors for pricing, where 53% go to the internet. Best value added services, 70% go to a distributor, 29% go to the internet. Safety data sheets, 58% go to a distributor, 41% go to the internet. Product availability after hours, that would be more distributor. Product training, still heavily 76% through distributors, but 24% from the internet. So there's some hope for distributors.
Well, one of the follow-up to that was not just where they're getting that information, like SDSs and product technical data sheets, but the subsequent survey on that was, where do they end up buying? And I was happy to see that distributors still have the large Janssen distributors have the largest percentage, some of it through their online websites and some of it through their traditional sales process. But that's somewhere around 74%. Ultimately, these pricing decisions that they're making, they either are using that to leverage the pricing that they pay from a distributor, or they're accepting that the pricing coming from the distributor is an acceptable price to them. And often, and distributors, I've got a background in distribution, so I have a soft spot there for Janssen distributors. And, I think they've been going out of their way to try to say, we do more than just pull up with a brown truck and throw it on your doorstep. We go out of our way to get trained ourselves. We try to provide training to your staff. We try to solve problems, and you don't get that as much if you're surfing pricing on Google, but I think there's still a value that's associated with what a really good distributor can provide. That's always been part of that value add. So that's encouraging in a sense. I think the biggest message there that distributors need to be aware of is that their online presence has become as valuable as their brick and mortar presence and their field sales force. So, that's part of what's keeping the distributors kind of in the lion's share of getting the purchases from these procurement agents.
Which, if you put that in perspective with the mergers and acquisitions, that kind of changes the playing field a lot. If online is becoming more dominant, because somebody who goes out and buys up all these locations around the United States is competing against the internet, and you don't necessarily need the same brick and mortar footprint as you do to do that. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out with the whole M&A thing going on, as to whether or not they survive or not. So certainly interesting stuff.
Totally fascinating, and the other side of it, the technology guys, a kind of a side note, is all the technology that's going into autonomous deliveries, drone deliveries, like
Yeah.
wow. So who
Yeah.
knows what Jancast.com will be talking about 5 years from now.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we'll be talking about it.
Yeah.
And not some AI, right?
Exactly. We're
Where
not
people will be
AI,
going,
folks.
that kind of looks like Mark and Scott, but that, I
But
don't
their
know. I didn't
voices
look
are a
back
little
5 years
different.
ago. Yeah, we'll be fooling you. We'll put up an AI show and see if anybody can figure it out. Well, thanks all for tuning in. We got to get Mark off. He's got to get ready for his training sessions this afternoon, because people do need training, right, Mark?
They do.
Yeah, yeah. So thanks for tuning in, and send us your feedback. We'd like to hear if you like what we're talking about, and future subjects would be good too.
Yeah, and we're always game for valuable VIP style show guest.
Yes.
So if you can think of anybody that you would love to
Oh, yeah.
see us interview on Jancast.com, send us a note. We'll reach out to them.
Yep. Perfect.
So
Okay.
thanks, everybody.
See y'all. Bye-bye.